Most people fail at work not because they can't do their job or they're bad at it, but they fail because they don't know how to play the game of corporate America. There's a work that you're hired to do, but there are things undercover, secret that you have to do in order to grow and maintain your career. Hi, folks. I'm Ruben. I'm currently a talent partner, aka recruiter for a tech organization, and I'm here to give you the unspoken rules of the workplace. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 unspoken rules of the workplace. The things really nobody tells you, but everyone expects you to know. Like, we don't learn this in college. We don't learn this in school. And if you don't know these things, you are going to pay for it. You're going to experience stagnation. And quietly, slowly over your career, you're going to realize how far you could have gone if you knew these unspoken rules. Even if you don't apply all of these and you apply some, trust me, you will get further along. These are ways that you can stand out to avoid the unnecessary pain of having people who can't do the work that you do or know the stuff that you do move faster than you. Let's not make that happen. So I'm gonna jump right into it because y'all got work to get back into. One of the biggest skills that nobody really talks to you about is emotional discipline, or other people like to call it emotional intelligence or EQ. You can feel whatever you want at work, but you can't act on it. But you can't act on everything. See, when something triggers you at work, you have to pause. You have to be quiet. You can't just act out on that emotion that you're experiencing, whether it's anger, sadness, you cry on a call. These are things you cannot do. And most of the time, we react with incomplete information. You haven't gotten the full story. When you have pressure at work, it's because someone has experienced pressure themselves and it's coming from someone else. If your manager is freaking out on you about something, it's because they're experiencing their own kind of pressure with their higher ups or someone else. Not only that, but sometimes we just have a bad day. Our day starts terrible. If you have kids, I can imagine what your morning might look like. My dog, sometimes I wake up and there's vomit on the floor because I didn't feed him on time, and that's frustrating. And sometimes that's something that cannot control, and that shows up in the workplace if you don't take care of it. And sometimes these days, because especially if you're in the tech world, a lot of us are not in the office 5 days a week, especially if you sit in places like New York City or San Francisco. So sometimes you get a Slack message and it might come off a little brash, but really it's just a message. This rule also applies to email. Bad replies, bad reactions on an email, these are things you shouldn't take to heart, take personally. It's just work. People are experiencing a stressful day. It could be because of work or it could even be outside of work. Just know that a lot of what you're experiencing, and hopefully you're not the person doing those things because you have an emotional intelligent nature. You know, okay, I know this is not affecting me at work. You have to be good at compartmentalization. You have to be really good at that, especially at work, because unfortunately, life continues to happen. Things will happen at work, but guess what? That's why you hire a therapist, you have friends, you talk to your partner. These are people you talk to. You don't talk to your manager or maybe even a peer who can affect you because you never know what's going on out there. So stay safe, be careful, play the game. And speaking of reacting, you can't react well if you don't know the game you're playing. Okay, every company has politics. I remember learning this. I did a work development program many years ago when I was in my early 20s, and that's where I learned about this. I learned about all the little secret unspoken rules thanks to one of my finance teachers, you can call him, who really taught us a lot about the game. And he worked in finance, which is even more brutal than the tech industry. You got to know the game. You got to know when to be quiet. You got to know when to listen. You have to listen to everything and see between the lines. You have to get really good at this. You're playing the game of power. And people always say, you see it in the memes online, that people hate work politics. Yet it still exists, unfortunately, no matter what. And some of them are even playing into those politics. But really, what is politics at work but just a mix of relationships, influence, and information? And a lot of these dirty things do happen in the workplace, but guess what? Like, sometimes you have to even get your hands dirty. Now, I'm not talking about manipulating anyone, but just understanding your environment, listening, getting close to specific people. Sometimes the person who knows everything, like maybe it's the CEO, but you're better off getting really close to their executive assistant, because their executive assistant is actually the person with the power. Because the executive is actually just doing the day-to-day work, right? They're making things happen every day, their vision, where the company is going, yada, yada, yada. But the executive assistant knows exactly what's happening on the ground at every given time. And these are usually ways that decisions are actually made. And once you know the game, you need to see what's going on the field and make sure you actually see what's happening. So you're getting a bird's eye view of the entire organization and understanding what's happening so you know where you need to implant yourself, build those relationships, and start playing this game. See, you ever wonder how that person that you're like, oh, they dilly dally, they don't really work as hard as I do, get the promotion you were looking for, ends up getting an opportunity to work on something that you're like, I wanted to work on that. But unfortunately, here's the hard truth. The people who grow and get promoted are not always the hardest work. They're the most visible. They know where to be, how to show up, when to show up. If the work is not seen, it didn't happen. If you don't keep a paper trail, it didn't happen. So don't wait for other people to notice your impact. You have to showcase your impact. And that also include the relationships you build, because then your name starts getting out there. When I got promoted, back when I worked in my nonprofit days, I built so many relationships, had coffee chats with so many people that when I threw my hat in the ring for a specific position, they already knew my name. Even though I never worked closely with that team, people knew my name because of not only the impact that I had created, the relationships I've built, and the things I'd done. It was just all timing. Everything kind of worked out. So I share my wins and I connect my work into what's happening with the business. I always know what's the vision of the business and my team. Try to connect your work into that. And it's always good to get on the good side of leadership and find every opportunity to volunteer or do something that gets you closer to a leader. Because visibility isn't about bragging. It's not about what I used to be called kissing ass, excuse my language, but it's about the context of the business and what's happening. Everyone cares about people who care about the business. And part of that visibility is creating control around how people view you. So you've probably heard that advice, or people tell you like, be yourself at work. You've heard that. Be yourself. Be yourself. Everyone's talking about be yourself. Be yourself. All this. But at work, you're going to be selective on who you be yourself with. There's a difference between authenticity and transparency. See, because oversharing can actually hurt you. I've been there. I've overshared specific things happening. And while I'll share like a personal thing that's happening in my life, if I have to call out sick or something, I won't give the full details of it. And being too comfortable at work too fast creates a specific narrative around people's minds on who you are and what you do and how you do things. Because unfortunately, as humans, and you'll understand this amongst all my videos, is understanding humans, psychology, philosophy, history, and looking at how we act and how we do things. We create stories of people, even with minuscule information. So you don't owe everyone your full personality and the full aspect of who you are. You owe them chunks, bites. Be professional, be real, but be intentional about how real you are, because that's the way that people work. Sometimes if you're, say, too political or unfortunately religious, these are things that people use against you because they own biases. Or like, I'm not a religious person, I grew up in a Catholic church and I hated it. These bad things happened to me. And that can affect you because unfortunately people have unconscious biases that affect their day-to-day decisions. So sometimes you might not even be considered for something just because you shared this aspect of yourself. And while companies really try to create biases, to remove biases, unfortunately, we still have unconscious biases that we don't even think about and don't even know. So trust me when I say don't be yourself. Instead, be intentional with yourself and who you are and how you show up. And trust me, one of the other things is that your professional identity can be built so much faster if you know how to manage up well. See, a lot of people think managing up is about kissing butt, but it's actually not. It's about understanding expectations. And it's asking your manager or your team that week, what does success look like in the next week or the next month? It's understanding what pressures are happening to your manager. What are they stressed out about? How can you make their jobs easier? Because when your manager trusts you, they open doors for you. And when they don't trust you, guess what? Your career slows down to a trickle and you start realizing, why am I in the same position for the last 3 or 4 years and haven't grown when X person, John, grew faster than me. He was here for a shorter time. Because managing up is a form of influence, and influence is the game. But influence can also change depending on who you're talking to. So remember this. See, one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene, wrote a great book called The 48 Laws of Power. It was around for quite a while, and a lot of people spoke about it. It was even one of the books that were banned from prisons because prisoners read them and used the tactics in them for prisons. Now, the book was never created for you to use the skills. It was created for you to prevent people from using the skills against you. But learning the language of power is powerful because everyone speaks a different language when it comes to influence. influence language. Some people respond to more logic. Some people respond to confidence. Some people respond closely to relationship. Some people respond to data. Some people respond to stories. Well, most people respond to stories. So communicating in that way, specifically with who you're communicating with, puts you in a better place, puts you in an influential space because you're able to communicate in a way that lands with that person and they see you as a really smart individual. So understanding what your organization speaks and speak that language. Is it a language of relationships broadly in your organization? Speak that language. Is the organization more data driven? They speak a lot on data. Be data driven. There are different ways, kind of like a tuning where you're tuning different radio signals to understand like what radio signal you're looking for and what are they looking for, so you guys can communicate in the most effective manner. And this takes time. This takes time when you start in an organization to understand and know. This is why in the beginning you're quiet, you're learning things, you're listening, you're putting yourself in those specific calls. You're asking, can I jump on that call with this team? Can I understand the business from this side? Can I understand what's going on here? And for every role is different. For what I do, I work with so many teams that I'm able to do this just regularly in my day to day. But if you're I don't know, a marketing operations analyst, like you're kind of stuck on the marketing team and you're doing things on this one side and you're completely unaware of what's going on this side. But why not understand what's going on in the sales side that works so closely with the marketing team, and understand what's happening in HR so you understand like, oh, this is where the organization is going and how I may change my team in the next year or two. These are ways you're asking yourself questions and using the power of your LLMs, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, or any of the others, to really give yourself an understanding, create a career coach to help you navigate these things. Because here's the truth, being good at your job is only the beginning. Skills alone don't get you promoted. Competence is what helps you. Because promotions, opportunities like that come from timing. You have to be lucky, you have to be at the right place at the right time with the right relationships. Not only that, but because of those relationships, you build trust, you have a reputation now. You're visible. You need these relationships. You need people to say your name, as I mentioned earlier, in the rooms when you're not there. So don't believe this BS of working hard quietly. Work enough and still work hard. To a certain extent, you still have to work hard. You still have to showcase that skill. But sometimes that's not enough. Influence is, again, the game. And I'm going to keep saying that. And actually, while we're on the topic of growth, also about other things, and that's feedback. Feedback is not all equal. Unfortunately, some feedback is great, and some feedback is some stuff you could just throw into the trash because not all feedback is true. What I consider true feedback is if multiple people keep saying the same things and it's consistent, whether good or bad. Because sometimes that feedback is not about you, it's about someone else's mood and what they're going through that specific day. And sometimes people have their own agenda. Sometimes people are just projecting their own mishaps to you. So your job when you're getting feedback is to decode it, both good and bad. You have to understand this. What's helpful, what's biased, what's noise, and then filter whatever you can apply in your day-to-day. And you need to be master at digital communication in a timely manner. You have to write your messages and your emails as if it's going to be forwarded to someone else, or that your company is watching everything that you're writing, even if they're not. Because your tone and what you write can come off 10 times harsher in writing. So you want to make sure you're adding warmth, clarity, empathy, and being intentional with your notes. This is why LLMs, ChatGPT, and things like this are so crucial in writing these days. So if you can use a program that helps you in writing your emails, do it. Because a confusing Slack message or something that comes off a little mean can cause havoc in the future and have ripple effects for your brand and your reputation. So clarity is kindness, empathy is the name of the game. And I'm going to go back to the 48 Laws of Power in Robert Greene's book because I think this is so crucial. That's Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. And it's a very powerful law. Instead of showing people the struggle, you show them just the outcome. You make it easy. It's the reason why we're so infatuated and amazed at how people get successful. We don't usually see the struggle unless we watch like a documentary about this person. So instead of showing your work all messy, chaotic, and it can make people worry, present it as smooth and controlled. People like to see mastery. And it doesn't mean you don't have to ask for help and you have to be this perfectionist, but you don't broadcast the hard times and the struggle and the frustration that you go to in building something. You broadcast the results and you ease into that credibility that people want to see. I remember, and I'll give you an example, when I was in my early on in my corporate career, I was just a recruiting coordinator, and I had to create a Excel spreadsheet of all the data of how a specific tool that we started using. It was just a text messaging tool because back then we would make calls to bring people in to talk about our program and things like that. And I created this because I was like, why don't we text people? Calls don't work no more. People don't pick up their phones. People are busy. If you could shoot them a text, they can show interest. They can answer at any time. So for me, it was a efficiency practice. And it was very difficult. At the time, I didn't really know how to create pivot tables and things of that nature on Excel. But I didn't say that. Instead, I took a class. I went to a class for Excel to master pivot tables. I specifically focused on that and maybe some other tools within. Then I practiced a lot to make that pivot table perfect. And I had by then already built relationships with people in the office who utilize these tools already that weren't on my team. So I asked them, hey, can you take a look at this to make sure that it makes sense? This is my mission. This is what I'm trying to do. Does this make sense? Some people gave me great feedback on it, and I was able to pivot and create these pivot tables. I didn't do that on purpose to broadcast to my team in a team meeting to showcase how effective our text messaging service was and how it raised our attendance rate by 30% at the time. So you're able to talk in numbers. People are much, again, you build credibility, you build influence. People know that you're the guy, you're the lady who could do it. Because look, at the end of the day, workplaces aren't about work, they're ecosystems of psychology, politics, communication, perception, and relationships. Humans are running the orgs, even if they have AI embedded. So if you understand these rules and you can implement majority of them, you'll navigate the workplace, you'll build your own confidence, you'll protect your reputation, you'll build your reputation, you'll show up polished, and you'll grow faster than people who are technically more talented, but they don't understand these games. Because once you learn the unspoken rules of the workplace and the way the game is being played, whether you realize it or not, you will be successful. You will grow. You will be that guy or that gal who gets things done, even though people don't know what's happening in the dark. The same can be said for entrepreneurship, but we're talking about work for now. I'll leave you with that. And if you agreed with a lot of these lists or you want to add some more, comment below. And if you have any questions, also comment below. I'll be all up in those comment sections just answering. And until the next video.